Well, with the USDA report here out on Friday, we just wanted to go over a corn and soybean supply and demand table. If you spent any time on X, Twitter, you can really feel the tension between the bulls and the bears here after this latest push up, whether or not China is going to come to the table and what we're going to do with yield and things of that nature. So, we're just going to show you our tables in here. As always, make sure you keep in mind everything's for education and example purposes. Make sure you guys understand and know your own risk tolerance as we go through the information. When we look at soybeans right now, we're just going to focus on yield and exports. I mean, you can move these numbers around however you want, but I think these are the two major talking points right now. When we look at August to Nov over the last 10 years, you've only had a drop of 5% or greater in yield twice. That occurred in 19 and then in 2022. So it's fairly uncommon. Now, when we look at the export side of things as well, same time frame, your largest reduction in exports was 85 million bushels, while your largest gain was 35 million. So we've got our September numbers here in front of us on the far left. If you want to jump right to a 5% yield loss, keep in mind that's happened two other times. Bring this yield down to 50.8, and all else equal, your ending stocks falls to 79, and you've got beans in the teens just like that. Now let's go all the way to the far right. This is probably a little more of a reasonable expectation for the report. A 1% yield loss brings you into 52.9. And then if you take a little bit off of the export number as well, given that China has been really slow in here to meet any sort of export expectations, you're back into that 314 million bushel ending stocks number. And while we've had a good rally, you can argue that the range really comes back into the 9 to 1050 type of zone here on soybeans. I think at the end of the day, what's really important to remember too is that Brazil continues to grow both in soybean production as well as exports. And when we take a further step back and we look at global ending stocks of soybean, it is some of the highest on record. So there's plenty of supply out there when we look to this bean market. We cannot forget that, despite everybody focused in on US. Now, on the corn side of things, same thing applies. We're going to look at yield, and then we're just going to take a little bit of a look at feed over that same 10-year period. When you consider drops in yield on the USDA report, you've never seen a 5% or greater drop in the August to November timeframe. Your typical large drop is around 2%. When we look at the feed reduction, 100 million bushels is one of the largest drops in feed usage. So going over to our corn supply and demand table, again, we've got the September numbers there on that left side. On the far right, this is a number that we feel is probably, within reason. Might be a little low yet on yield, but the 2% loss brings you down to a 183 number. And if you shave 100 million bushels off of feed and residual, you're at about a 1.8 billion bushel carryout. It's certainly supportive, maybe of a 375 floor, put you maybe into the 475 $5 ceiling, but it's certainly not really bullish corn above 550. Couple points to make on corn. Again, Argentina and Brazil continue to show good growth in production and help stabilize the global supply, while the corn global ending stocks aren't as high as soybeans. They are stable. Something to consider too is that when we look at this feed and residual number, this is the highest usage since 2005. Yet on the other hand, we have one of the smallest cattle herds out there, as well as wheat being cheap and could be substituted for feed. So you have to wonder how much movement can happen in the feed and residual side of this balance sheet as well. At the end of the day, it's always important just to have a plan. For us, we want to make sure that we're staying ahead of these markets and selling into strength. I think if you want to just take a look at old crop and you're down to maybe your last third that's in storage, you can consider getting some put options in place. Get yourself a good price floor established. You don't have to worry about it, and let the market do its thing. If we get some bullish numbers in here, you've got that upside potential. If this thing does flip bearish, you've got a reasonable price floor in place and you can go about your business. We have to remind ourselves that they're more than just a US market, especially over the last few years. Global supplies are pretty healthy when we look at the soybean and corn balance sheet. I think if you're really wanting to be extremely bullish on beans, you're looking at South America weather for that next leg higher. You're going to need a supply disruption there. I think at the end of the day, we all need to just take a step back as well and, recognize that in 6 months, we'll all know what we could have or should have done better. We'll have the benefit of hindsight, and we can certainly tell ourselves, see, we knew this was going to happen, or I told you it wasn't. So keep that in mind. Keep these markets in front of you and have a plan. As always, we enjoy making the content for you. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and God bless.